All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Amish Rebel podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. We are actually recording this in the evening, and we are on a little different set. We've been experimenting with having a mobile set and being able to get out and do some more interviews that you're going to see in the coming episodes. So we greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. Today's guest has a very encouraging story. His name is Joseph Hershberger. He is my nephew, and I'm honored to be able to interview him. I was also very honored and blessed to be able to help him leave the Amish, and I'm sure his dad's not too excited about that, but nevertheless, he's living a very very fulfilling life, and since he's left, he's accomplished a lot. And so I hope that you guys feel encouraged by the story, and you guys share it with your friends and your family. Please leave your comments for us so that we can answer them. Joseph will be reading some of those and hopefully responding to some of them. I'm volunteering his time right now. So, without further ado, we're going to get into the story of how Joseph grew up, where we want to kind of highlight a little bit of the way he grew up, get you guys into his world, and so that you can understand where he's coming from, and then also understand where he's at today. So, without any more of my rambling, why don't you go ahead and share a story of where you grew up as a kid.
Yes, so thank you for that introduction. I was, 3 or 4 when my mom and dad moved out of southern Minnesota. They moved to northern Missouri. And we lived there till I was, I think, 10 or 11. And then we moved to southern Iowa, which is, I don't know, was it 3-4 miles?
Okay.
Something like that. And then that's where I was until I left. So
gotcha. So you guys grew up. I mean, you were born on the farm that I was raised on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys lived in the house next door.
Yep.
To Grandma and Grandpa's.
Yep. And the small house there. Yep. On the farm.
Yeah. That. I was thinking that was the case because I remember you as a little kid, about 2, 3 years old.
Probably, yeah.
And in fact, Joseph's sister has been on the podcast. She has a lot to do with the podcast, actually, but she's been on. Her name's Lovina. So if you guys have seen her interview, this is her brother that she talks about, and those two got into quite a bit of trouble there. Grandma and Grandpa.
I don't. So, like, living in Minnesota, I don't remember living at Grandma and Grandpa's there. I do remember going back there, before we moved.
Okay.
And after we have moved down south, but I don't remember living there.
Okay, so would you remember the story of you being picked up by someone?
That I do remember. I remember that. Like, I don't just remember the story. I remember.
Oh, you actually remember that
walking
happening
down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't you share that story with the audience? Because I think it's super interesting, and it's also just a little bit of a picture of maybe why you're at where you're at today.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's blurry. I was 3 at the time, maybe.
Okay.
If even quite that. It's very blurry, but I do remember me and my sister Lovina. We were supposed to be around the house, playing. Like, we can't leave the property or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember walking out the driveway. I remember correctly, we walked out the driveway and started walking down the road. And I don't know how far we made it. I don't honestly don't know, but I know we went a little ways and we ended up in the newspaper. My mom and dad still have the newspaper clipping of the story.
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah.
Dude.
I think I read it. Was it? Because I went and seen them here. It's probably been a couple months now. And I think I read it when I was there last.
Wow.
Yeah, they still have the clipping.
Was that on the Fillmore County newspaper? Or Fillmore?
Whatever that newspaper is.
Yeah, I think it's the Fillmore County newspaper.
The whole, it's like one lamb and the whole sheet out, pretty much.
The article.
Yeah. Two little Amish kids getting caught. I don't remember what happened after we were brought back home. That I do remember.
Was there some talking to you?
There's a little bit of talking and a little bit of persuading. We won't do that again.
Wow. So to kind of give you an idea, I mean, you're living on an Amish farm. I mean, the entertainment is very limited, but in your little 3-year-old mind, and just to give the audience a perspective, is, I mean, there's not much to do on an Amish farm other than, I don't know,
imaginary fun.
Yeah, imaginary fun. And so, Joseph, as a 3-year-old, decided to just take matters in his own hands and go cruising down the road, walking down the road with his little sister. And somebody did pick you guys up and bring you back to the farm, right?
I do believe so. The lady that put it in the newspaper is the one that brought us back.
That's crazy.
To the farm.
That's just wild.
And it's pretty interesting to read it, like.
Yeah. So that's kind of how your life started out as a kid. I mean, that was.
And I remember
first.
I remember getting scared for that. Like, they talked to us about getting kidnapped and sold on the black market and everything. And I just remember I was trying to figure out what the black market is. How bad the thing would have been.
This was a pretty deep conversation for a 3-year-old Amish kid. I mean, seriously.
And, they didn't do the best job of explaining what the black market is. I was just taught that it's very bad and I don't want to get caught on the road again, so.
Oh, wow. So that was enough to scare you to not do that again. But there were plenty of other moments where.
We done a lot of other stuff that we got away with. So.
that happened later on in life. But from there, you moved to Canton area. You remember that?
I don't.
Okay, so
the only place I remember living at is on the gravel road there.
Yeah.
There where it went in that driveway down the hill around the curve to the right down to the house.
Yeah.
And had the shed kind of. We went in the driveway, was kind of straight.
Well, that would have been Canton, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah,
that's where we got caught walking on the road. No,
from what I remember, it was at mom and dad's, but maybe it wasn't.
I thought it was. So that's what I mean. It's very blurry. I do remember when it happened.
Yeah.
Bits and pieces, kind of.
Yeah, and
I was 3 years old or something like that. I wasn't. I think she was like a year and a half or 2 years old, something like that.
Wow.
Barely walking.
Yeah, you're referring to Lovina sitting behind the camera, controlling the cameras.
Yeah.
But, I do want to say, like, today's video is not about just the story, and it's also not just about where Joseph grew up or where every place that he lived at. We're just trying to give you a little bit of a perspective on how Joseph grew up and how they moved around, and then they eventually were a part of starting a new Amish community. And so I think that was when you're about 5 years old, right? 4 or 5?
Well, as soon as we moved out of southern Minnesota down to northern Missouri.
Okay. So at 4 years old, you moved to northern Missouri, Iowa line, close to there, and you guys started a new community. Your dad bought a bunch of property.
I think he bought like 30 acres or something like that there, and I think we were like the second family to move in, something like that.
Okay.
And that's weird too. I remember moving. I remember getting on the bus, moving down there. But then there's a couple years that I don't really remember. Like after we were living there. I remember when we arrived at the place, which everything was new, strange, it's, I don't know, I was kind of scared, I guess. Yeah. But then there's a couple years, like from there until I was like 6 years old, I'd say, like that I don't really remember. Gotcha. Like once I started to school, then I remember like the first year, and then the second grade, it kind of blurs together, and then it's kind of in and out. I don't know.
So take me into when you started school, because you're in a new community, and you were, you were around new kids, so everybody was kind of a stranger to you.
Everybody was a stranger to each other. Nobody knew each other. And
that's crazy.
I don't know. That was kind of. Well, I guess I take that back. Not everybody was a stranger. Because some of the people that moved down there were actually our neighbors when we were living. In southern Minnesota.
Gotcha.
So once they moved in, I knew, one of my best friend, we were like brothers growing up. Like we were neighbors when we lived in southern Minnesota. So.
Gotcha. So when you started school, what was that like? I mean, did you guys have a schoolhouse? Did they already build it?
They built a brand new schoolhouse.
Okay. And you guys walked to school? Yeah,
we were a half a mile, 3/4 mile from the school, something like that maybe.
So everybody in the community their kids just walked to school.
In that, so that community part, about half of it was in northern Missouri, and the other half was in southern Iowa.
Yeah.
Which, in between, there's like a 4-mile gap in between. I mean, obviously now that gap's filled up, like, they bought, young people got married and whatever, but, so they had their own schoolhouse on the on the Iowa side, and Yoderville, that's where we live, was Yoderville. It was pretty much all Yoder, so like one or two different last name, like Yoder was the last name there, so. And we lived in Yoderville, and then you had the north side.
Gotcha.
Until I was 11, and then we moved up to on the Iowa side of things.
Oh, okay.
So, which was, like I said, 4 miles or something like that.
So you grew up, your dad didn't really farm, but he had a sawmill, and you grew up running or helping on the sawmill a lot, right?
So when we lived in Missouri, that's all we did was sawmill.
Okay.
I mean, we had our own garden and stuff, obviously,
Yeah.
But then when we moved up to Iowa, we actually did farm and had a sawmill. Well, we moved to Iowa, and we were gonna have a sawmill, and then that kind of, I don't know how, it kind of fell through or whatever.
Yeah.
And he went to doing construction, and I was still in school at the time.
Okay.
So we started plowing fields and planting. We did a lot of pumpkins and mums, flowers, and stuff. So I don't know how many acres. At the time, it seemed like a lot. Now going back, seeing it, it's not very big at all. But back then it seemed like a lot, plowing with two horses. Yeah. So
I mean, you're farming everything with horses. You don't have any power equipment. You're not using any tractors or anything like that. So it's a single bottom plow most of the time, right? And a
That's
drag
all we ever
and
had. Yep.
disc and
a drag, and then we were living life once. We had like a 6-row planter for corn, I think.
wow.
Pull it with the horses.
Okay.
That wasn't even we had a 2-row planter for corn and like a 6 or 8-row planter for wheat and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like oats and wheat. We done some of that, like thrashing and stuff. Okay. And that was big time farming. We had to hitch 3 horses up to some of that equipment to pull.
Wow. What was it? What was it like? Okay, you had farming was with all horses and steel wheels. There's no.
We had a couple pieces of equipment with rubber wheels, but we just bought them or something. So, you got to change it because most of the time I think they order their wheels. Yeah. So you got to wait till, you obviously can't. You don't have to just leave it sitting until you have steel wheels. Yeah. You can use it. Like a wheelbarrow, you can run a rubber tire on your wheelbarrow until you get the steel wheel for it. Switch it out.
So stupid. So I just want to point out the obvious that every community has their set of rules, but Joseph, the way you grew up was Schwarzenegger Amish, which is the way I grew up, and they're very similar rules. There's some old order Amish that have more advanced rules, but in this interview, I hope to get to talk about where Joseph is at today and how he's what he's doing today. So I hope you guys are enjoying this and you stick around until the end. But what was it like to be like growing up the way that you guys did, but then you had a sawmill? Like, what was that like? Because did you start out with? Obviously your dad's running the sawmill still to this day, but it's pretty advanced now. The way that you guys started out, did you drag logs with the horses ever, or
no? Well, hardly ever. Sometimes. So we had a neighbor, a farmer. Okay. He'd come in with his tractor every morning. And you call them skits where you lay your logs on. And he'd pile them things way up, enough for a whole day. Okay. And then he'd just come in every morning, or he'd come in after hours at night and fill it up for the next day. But okay. And then Dad would just pay him, for his fuel and whatever. The guy usually wanted some baked goods and stuff for his time, Yeah. Just a little something. Because we're very close. Like, to this day, that guy's wife, she just texted me here not long ago and just wondering if I'm doing okay and everything, just yeah. I knew him growing up all my life, so yeah, very close. And then sometimes if we ran out of logs or something, we'd drag a few up with horses, but not a whole lot. No, hardly.
So you pretty much relied on modern equipment from your neighbor to come help out. And that's the way a lot of the Amish operate, is within the community. If there is something that they can't do by hand, they may ask the English neighbor, the non-Amish neighbor, to come over and help. And plowing, I know in Minnesota, plowing driveways, we couldn't really keep the driveway open, so the non-Amish neighbor would come and plow, and so that way the milk truck can come in and out. But those are just things that the Amish do to be able to get by without bending the rules, so to speak.
They have. It's amazing what kind of friends they have, like the non-Amish people. Like, they will bend over backwards for their Amish, like most of them, for their Amish neighbors to help them and stuff, Yeah. Like, I don't know. A lot of their stuff don't make sense to me, but it's great how they I guess, I don't know how I'd say this, how, like the relationships they can have with people and still live their, I don't know how you'd say it there.
Their conservative lives.
Simple life, very simple life. Yep.
Yeah, that's I think that if I look back at one thing that I miss the most about being Amish, it's the community. I always tell people, like, being away from the Amish is great, but I don't think there's anywhere in this world that I've experienced community the way that I had it in the Amish community. And it's because, like, if you're Amish and you're kind of following the rules, like, all those people just stick together. Like, I mean, where else do you go that there's a barn raising? Where else do you go that if somebody's house breaks down, 50 neighbors come by and that house is built back up within a week or however long
2 days
it takes.
or whatever.
Yeah, 2, 3,
it's 4 like one big family.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, they get together for something like that. The women, all they do is focus on making sure there's food there when lunchtime rolls around, and the men and anybody that's capable, like men and boys, anybody that's capable of handling some tools and a 2x4 is up there helping building it.
And that's where the work ethic comes from. So by the time you're at what age do you start running the sawmill?
I was 17 when I started. No, 16. Between 16 and 17 when I actually, I actually ran the sawmill. Like, if Dad was gone,
you're fully responsible for running it, making sure
to make sure everything keeps running.
Yeah.
If, like, Dad would go out, he might go out with the locker usually and to buy out the timber to buy the logs or whatever from the farmer or whatever, and so then I was left with if I said shut it down, it shut down usually. So
wow. So you come from a family of how many kids are in your family? How many
13 of us total.
13? Yeah, your parents needed a big garden.
Yeah.
For sure. So
we actually had two pretty good sized gardens.
Okay. But if you're the oldest of 13. So you're obviously going to be the early adopter to responsibility.
Yeah.
But by the time you're 14, you have a full-time job on the sawmill, right?
Yes. No, actually not, because right then is where the sawmill deal fell through. Excuse me. And we were doing construction.
Okay.
But I would have been 13 when I got out of school, and I mean the next day I had a full-time job. I was a big boy then. I could take my suspenders off and we went to work.
Oh, I forgot about that.
As soon as you leave school, you can take your suspenders off.
Yeah, that's a big deal, dude.
That is I remember. I took them off on the way home from school. I was like, I don't have to wear suspenders.
Wow.
But that was our community. There's a lot of other communities that, like my aunt, your sister.
Yeah.
Like they wear suspenders. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
In our community, it wasn't like you couldn't wear suspenders. It was just, you kind of got laughed at for wearing suspenders.
Well, and that's interesting because I've been thinking about the Amish. They have a transition from the time you're 14, you get out of school, and then that's when you really, if I look back, like that's when you feel like you're a man because you get your first big boy job. And I forgot about the suspenders, but that's a very symbolic, like, hey, I'm no longer a boy. Yep. I'm now a man type deal.
Or I'm still a boy, but I'm a big one. Like
I'm a big boy.
You don't mess with me anymore.
Yeah.
And that's, it's a lot of things like that. Just small little details that they just like as kids that it was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, like
for sure.
looking back now, suspenders is like what I don't get the what's so special about not having to wear suspenders. But back then that was a huge deal.
Oh yeah.
Like it was like holy cow, I'm big now. I got responsibilities now.
Yeah.
But before I was out of school, like I was in 8th grade. We had so yeah. I take that back. I didn't go straight from out of school to the sawmill. I take that back. I done construction in the summertime while I was still in school.
Oh, okay.
Like at the summer when summer break was around.
Yeah.
That's all, every day I'd go to. And then I had 1 year left in school when the sawmill started up, kind of.
No, okay.
No, yeah. Because at my last year of school, most of the time I wouldn't go to school on Fridays.
Okay.
I had to go wash hawk barns for a guy.
That sounds like a lot of
Friday
fun.
and Saturday. I mean, I look forward to the weekend like crazy. No, I'm kidding. It was a horrible job. And
yeah.
We did that. I was out of school. We still did it. And then I can't remember. It wasn't that long after I was out of school. I just walked up to Dad one day and I'm like, I don't want to wash hawk barns anymore. I'm not doing it. And, we kind of, it went down as it went down, but needless to say, we quit washing hawk barns.
Okay.
And then it was sawmill and farming full time.
Oh, okay.
And till I got sick of that, because you'd get home from the sawmill at 6 at night, sometimes 6:30, and you'd be out in the field till midnight.
Wow.
Back up by 5, 6 in the morning to the sawmill all day, back to the farm till midnight or more. And it was just over and over. It's just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And I bucked him so hard to just quit farming. Either we farm or we just, we don't need two different things going on.
Yeah.
And he didn't quit farming till after I left. So.
Wow. So you were at what age were you when you were doing that back and forth farming, and were you 17 at that time?
Yeah. 15, 16, 17.
Okay.
Yep.
So, 16, I mean, do you feel like that was too much at that age? Or?
Well, I don't know. Farming was not for me.
Yeah.
I did not like farming,
but as far as physically you handling it.
Physically, you were tired, obviously.
Yeah.
But physically.
You got a good night's rest after that?
Well, about 5 hours.
Yeah, about 5 hours. So
you slept whenever you got the chance to sleep, basically. So
you think, okay, looking back, any 16-year-old complaining about having to do a few hours of work, it's like, what's the happy medium there, do you think? Like, what are you going to teach your son to do?
I had no problem going to work at 7 in the morning and working till 6 at night.
Gotcha.
If I could have went home then and been done for the day, I don't have to go home and eat supper and go hitch up the horses and okay, we got another 6 or 7 hour shift to do here, so let's go get her done.
But just to be clear, that's not why you left.
No, absolutely.
So let's move on to the time that you started kind of planning to leave the Amish and how that went down. So you had originally planned to leave, right? When you were...
I was 16 when I tried to leave.
So tell me what trying to leave looks like.
That is when a person does something or he is doing something and it completely fails and it doesn't work out. I guess that's what I call trying, and that's kind of what happened with me.
Okay.
Everything was going great until my sister and a few of my other siblings caught me.
They figured out that you're leaving?
Yeah. They
Okay.
found, I left the note, and they found the note, and I wasn't quick enough on. If all the, if all the gears in the machine would have been running, everything would have clicked just right. But let's just say the one engine, the one guy was sleeping, so fell asleep and forgot about me. So.
Oh, gotcha. So you had for those that don't know how leaving works, it's usually you have somebody, like, you make a phone call, you have somebody lined up to pick you up. And so what I'm hearing from your story is you had everything planned, but the person that was supposed to pick you up that night didn't show up.
Nope, he did not show up.
Okay.
Yeah, I had everything planned. Your brother Dan, which is my uncle, was in southern Minnesota. He was sitting up awake that night, just so you guys know, it was like 10 o'clock at night, so it wasn't early, but he was waiting for the phone call, because he was gonna come halfway and meet her, meet us halfway, and I was gonna go with him.
Yeah, it's about a 4.5 to 5 hour, yeah.
4 to 4.5 hours, something like that. Yeah.
Drive from your parents' house to my brother's house. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were gonna meet, they each would have had a couple hours to drive. And well, I went where we were supposed to meet. Nobody showed up, and then I was impatient. So rather than just keep walking for another 5 miles, I decided I'm gonna go back and think. So where we grew up, we had phone shacks, like a little building with a phone, and in our case, it was at our sawmill where we worked.
Yeah.
So I came back there and obviously it was locked, and I came back there and I didn't have a key, so I was kind of improvising at the time, and I had just opened the door. I heard something. I look over my shoulder, and there's my sister and a few of the others, and I'm like, whatever. And I proceed to keep walking in. I'm just ignoring them. And they said something about I have to come back. I'm like, no, not happening. I was not going to go back with them. And then they threatened to get the neighbors involved. Go get the neighbor. And I'm like, well, okay, we're not getting the neighbors involved in this. We'll just give it up. And in the back of my head, I had not gave up on leaving. I had to put it on the back burner for a while. Yeah. And at the time, my dad wasn't at home. He was in another community, because he's like a deacon. He helps run the church or whatever. Yeah. So he was in another community, and so I thought it'd be a very good opportunity to leave while Dad's not around. It makes things a little easier, and it turns out it was easier to leave when Dad was around than when he wasn't.
Because then you waited a few years until you were 18.
Yeah, I was 18 when
So then you finally did leave. The night that you left, the guy did actually show up and pick you up.
I called him a couple hours, so we had made plans, and I was running the sawmill at the time. The day I left, I was in charge of the whole thing. Okay. Dad wasn't around. I broke the record on the sawmill that day. I don't know, was it because I was nervous or whatever, but I was full of it that day. I was full of energy, and I cut more lumber that day than anybody ever did on that sawmill. So wow. And I had called him a couple hours before quitting time, and I told him, I'm like, now you do not forget that 7:30 tonight you're supposed to be picking me up. He's like, I won't. I promise, I won't forget this time. So quitting time rolled around, and we had everything cleaned up, shut down, and I was about ready to go home. Dad came back, and he walked in, and he gave me a pat on my back for it, like I felt great that I did what I did that day, but I felt bad to what I was gonna do to him later that night, which was about 2 hours late. Would have been hour and a half to 2 hours later.
Yeah.
And I felt very bad to put him through that, but I'm out of here. I can't, because I was getting to the age where they were expecting me to join church and get baptized and everything, and I'm like, I'm doing everything I can not to get involved. So it's like, well, I guess this is the time to leave.
Yeah. So that night you followed through and you left anyway. Like that had to have been really difficult, especially after.
Oh, it was.
After your dad kind of acknowledged the fact that
he had a big smile that night. Like he was tickled, with what we had gotten done that day, and I was too. I felt proud. Like we did it.
Yeah.
And I felt horrible. It's like, but so we went home, and we had a greenhouse at the time, a new one, so we were putting fill in, and you use shovels and wheelbarrows, so we were putting fill in. I kept looking at my time, and at the time my brother knew I was going to leave. I had actually told him a couple days before that I'm leaving.
Okay.
But I didn't tell him when. I'm not telling you which day or how or whatever. And that night, I guess I looked a little suspicious because I kept looking at the time when we were doing this thing.
Okay.
Like putting fill in the greenhouse, and so time came. I went in and walked through not everybody. Brother that knew I was going to leave, he was in the basement. I think pretty much everybody else was up in the kitchen. And, they were washing dishes and getting ready to go to bed. Cleaning everything up.
Yeah.
I remember walking through, and I asked, at the time I was rebuilding a sled,
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Mom if she knows where a tape measure is. Of course, I wanted to throw everybody. And Dad goes, well, what do you want with a tape measure? I'm like, well, I'm rebuilding the sled down in the basement, and I'm going to want to measure some stuff. And so they found a tape measure, and I went to the basement. The reason I wanted to go to the basement was to get rid of my heavy coat and stuff, because I didn't want to drag it with.
Okay.
And as I'm going, I went outside. We had a walk-in basement. I went out the back door and around the house, and as I was walking down, one of my brothers was going to the barn with a bottle, because we had some lambs, and because we raised sheep, we had some lambs that we bottle fed. And he was on his way down to bottle feed them for the night, before we go to bed. And at that time, William, the guy that was picking me up, went by, and I had told him to tap on his brakes twice, so I know it's him. And he tapped twice, and I'm like, my brother goes, oh, wonder who that is. He braked like he was, that beats me. I don't know. I went into the basement, and I dropped my hat and my coat and stuff, and I remember, I think my brother down there said something. I can't remember, but I went outside, and as I kind of stepped into the darkness, I seen him flashing out the window, like trying to see what. And I bet if you'd ask him today, he knew what was going on. He just was trying to kind of watching to see how it all goes down or whatever. Yeah. But I stepped into darkness, and I waited till the other one of my brothers was down in the barn, and then I took off out the driveway as fast as I could run.
Wow.
Out the driveway up the road a little bit and hopped in, and that's
crazy. So you left, your parents weren't even in bed yet?
No.
Wow.
About an hour later, or hour later, or less than an hour later, and my dad shows up where I'm staying.
So he figured out very quickly where you're at.
Yeah, very, very quickly.
So he showed up with the horse and buggy?
No, one of the neighbors took him.
Oh, okay. Right. So he went up to he must have gone up to the neighbors fairly quickly. And
stuff must have happened real fast at home and I wasn't even thinking of, how everything's going at home. I just, woohoo, I left. I really didn't. I didn't look back. I was before I actually left. I felt bad, but during adrenaline is you get a rush and it's just you just do what you have to.
Yeah, you're getting out of there. So I just want to say I'm interrupting you a little bit here, but I want to say it was about that at that point in time, I get a text message, and I haven't heard from my nephew in I don't know how long it was prior to this, because he's Amish. I left 15 some years ago, and we would go see him occasionally, but because my brother's very conservative Amish, we don't go there a whole lot. And anyway, so I get a text message or a call or something that night. And I'm living in Texas, and I was quite shocked to hear from you. But you were looking for a place to stay, and then that's when we kind of ended up getting to know each other a little bit better. And I was able to get him a bus ticket down to Texas out of Iowa. Or Missouri, I guess. Yeah. And so the person that picked you up took you to their house, and you stayed there for, was it a couple of nights? 4 nights? 4 days. Okay. Yeah. You didn't have anything to your name. You didn't have any money, or
I had $5.
You had $5 and no clothes.
No, I borrowed clothes to start out.
Maybe we could insert. Well, maybe not. I was gonna say maybe we could show a photo of you when you first left.
Yeah, I got a photo somewhere.
Maybe we'll put that on the post.
Yep.
Just as before this interview comes out, but yeah. So walk me through what it was like facing your dad after you had just left, like an hour and a half. It
wasn't even that long though. So when we left, before we got to William's house, it's when we called you.
Oh, okay.
I was still panting from running, basically, when we called you. And we had parked on the side of the road to talk with you. We went to William's house. We walked in the door. We went straight to the bathroom, cut my hair.
Because that's a big deal.
Completely short, like bus cut. Deal. I mean short. And
wow.
I took a shower, and I was in the shower. William knocks, and he's like, "Your dad's wanting to see you." All right, I had just gotten out of the shower. I don't know. That night's kind of whatever, and I'm like, where's he? He's like, well, he's sitting outside in the driveway. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, well, I ain't talking to him. He's like, well, he really. So finally, I talked to the driver with Brandon. We knew him like really, really well.
Yeah.
Really good friends. And he's like, man, you gotta come. I'm like, no, I am not. And then finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm a man. I'll go talk to him. He ain't. It's like, he is not going to talk me out of anything. And I talked to him. I mean, he had a very surprised look in his eyes when I walked out there dressed in non-Amish clothes and short hair. I do know that, or what I've heard, is when he came back home after talking to me, he's like, the only thing he wanted to do was cut his hair. Or something. He had already cut his hair or something like that. So, yeah, that was quick. And then I was there. I left on a Tuesday night, I believe. I think it was Tuesday night, and then was it Friday? Was it Saturday when? Yeah, it was Saturday when.
Yeah, Saturday evening I picked you up at the.
Saturday morning I got on the bus in Kansas City, Missouri. Yep, because I got paid $100 a day working on a farm.
Oh, up there and.
Yep, at the end of each day he'd give me $100 cash, and I went to Dollar General, and first thing I did was bought a phone. Well, no, first thing I did was bought a couple pairs of jeans and some shirts and stuff. And then the next day, they were still borrowing a phone. The next day I went back and bought a phone for less than $100.
This is crazy.
Like
so by the time you in those 4 days, you made $100 a day, and by the time the fourth day came around, you had clothes and a phone, and what else?
I just spend all my money on clothes, and just at the end of each day I'd go stock up. Well, at the time I smoked pretty heavy, so obviously some of the money didn't go for clothes or a phone, because I smoked when I was still at home. My dad did.
Yeah.
We were allowed to do that at home, so I was already addicted to it. But before I left, and with leaving and dealing with my parents and everything, it was kind of nerve-wracking. But they came and see me. Was it Friday night? It's two of them, Mom and Dad.
Okay.
And then they tried their best to get me to come back. And I told them, I said, I got a one-way ticket going to Texas, and I am not refunding it. They had offered me to refund it. Like, I'll refund whoever I have to pay that ticket. I'm like, nope, it's not happening. And then he actually gave me $50.
No way.
That night.
That's unusual.
It's very unusual. Because as a kid, like, people that give you money, for doing certain things, and they just keep track of it, like, they just have a spreadsheet of it.
Yeah.
So then, once you turn 21, they'll pay you that money.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much. I had probably close to $300 that they had on a spreadsheet for me. He gave me $50 and told me, he's like, that's all you're going to get out of this whole deal. The rest of it goes to the other kids that don't leave. And I'm like, I don't even want your $50. Like, I can go fend for myself. You take that $50 and give it to one of the others. I don't want it. But I finally took it. And then here, a couple of years ago, I was at my parents, and he wrote me a check.
No way.
Here's the rest of the money I owe you.
Wow.
Well, you don't have to do that. He's like, no, I owe it to you. You deserve it. You've worked hard. I'm like, all right. All right. I just remember.
This is after you left.
I remember at one point in time when I wasn't going to get this money.
Yeah. But that wasn't always. So your dad was very. He was pretty set on trying to persuade you to come back.
Yes.
Right up front.
Yes.
And in fact, because I helped you out, he was not exactly happy with me for a while.
No, but I talked to him about that. I told him, I said, he cannot blame any of you guys for helping me at all.
Yeah.
And he's like, at first, it kind of irritated him, but he's like, and he did. He's like, I can't. Like, you guys are just looking out for me. They're not.
Yeah.
And I think he did truly, like.
So, let's talk about, because there's kids that leave and they get into the wrong crowd, right? Mm-hmm. They get into the crowd of drugs and alcohol and partying, and it's just chaotic.
It ruins their life.
And so, I mean, one of the things that was really heavy on my heart when I heard that you wanted to leave was to get you, to hopefully get you into an environment that is a little bit better, and there's, not as much of that going on. It's not as many opportunities. And I know, like, when you left, that wasn't very attractive to you. I mean, you were pretty set on like wanting to get into partying and stuff like that. So when you first came to Texas, I don't think it. I mean, maybe it was, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. It wasn't quite what you had expected it would be after leaving the Amish.
Not really. No, it was definitely not. There was definitely more rules than you can't call them rules, morals, more or less, whatever. That I didn't. I guess when I left, I wanted to get out, and I didn't want anybody to tell me what to do. That's I was just sick of, I can't do this, I can't do that because Grandpa couldn't do it, because Grandma couldn't do it, because whatever, and I just wanted out. I just wanted to do whatever I want to do, and I could, but it was. Looking back, I'm very glad it was the way it was. Now looking back, but for a while there, it was.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about, because maybe there's an 18-year-old kid that's looking to leave, or he just left, and he's trying to figure out where he fits in, what's the best route to take. He's listening to this, and he wants to hear what you did. Maybe he wants to follow your footsteps, or maybe he's thinking he's going to go his own path. And so what would you say, like, coming from where you came from and you left and you were in this new environment, but there still seemed to be, I mean, I wasn't okay with you just going out and being crazy, because I was responsible for making sure that you have a home to stay in, making sure that you have food to eat, and that you're making money. And that requires you to be responsible. So if that is the case, like, what would your advice be to that kid? I mean, not looking back at your 18-year-old self right after you left. Like, what would your advice be?
I would say, go for it. Find a church, a very good church, and get connected with very good people.
So when you said church, like, you just left. I mean, you just lost everybody that just left the Amish.
Well, right. That's not why I left the Amish. It was not because of church.
You didn't leave. But
I agree. I probably did lose them. But I'm just saying, that's the way it is. You gotta get connected to good people. You know?
So you're saying, are you saying just any church?
No. Like that's why I said, find a good church. Like,
what is a good church to you?
Well, good people. Like, you can do searching. You can find it. Something that you feel like you fit in.
Okay, but what makes a good church to you? Like, why do you feel like what makes a good church? I mean, there's Amish churches, there's Mennonite churches, there's Catholic, there's I don't know, there's all kinds of, there's Muhammad.
I guess, right. I mean, right. I guess in my definition of a good church is one that you feel like you fit in. Like, when you go to it. And it is, I guess, if they're not, how would I say it? They're not doing the right thing. I guess it wouldn't be a good church, even if you felt like you. If they're doing wrong, they're doing wrong.
So there may be some out there that believe in things that are not lining up with what the Bible says.
Right, and then again, read the Bible. Like, read the Bible and get connected to people that are very good Christians and whatever. Like, I think that's very important.
So you're talking about Christians.
Yeah.
Christian is a denomination as well.
Right.
So you're saying that a Christian church is the kind of church that you want to be a part of?
For myself, yes. Like, I can't speak for you or anybody else. I don't know what you know. maybe you want to be Mennonite. I don't know. You know, if you want to be Mennonite, you're happy to be that, then I'm happy for you. You know, I can't speak for you, but
Yeah.
I mean, read the Bible. I guess you don't even have to go to a church.
Yeah.
Like, just read the Bible and get connected to the right people. Like,
yeah.
going out to big parties isn't gonna. I mean, I wasn't all good after I left. That's
So walk me through what happened after you left. You came here, you lived with us for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months?
8 months.
8 months. So yeah, I lost a little bit of track of time there, but so it was a total of 8 months. And then one day you showed up and you said, you had a girlfriend and that you were moving. And so you ended up actually moving back to Minnesota.
Yep.
And what happened after you moved back to Minnesota? You feel like your life got better? Or
maybe for a few weeks.
Because you went back to a group of people that you were connected with.
It was good for the first. I mean, I don't regret living there at all.
Yeah,
I mean, I learned a lot of things.
Yeah, sure.
But it was, yes, I actually left then. Like, I felt like I left after I moved up there.
Yeah.
Nobody was watching, or nobody was telling me yay or nay, or there was a few people that tried telling me yes or no, but I didn't listen. I was cut loose and I was on my own, and it kind of went from there. So.
Well, and I just want to clarify, like, when he left and came to us, like, I did give you the free will.
You did.
I did. I did give you the free will to go out and do whatever you want. But I was very strong on, if I am helping you get started, like, you have to look for good people to surround yourself with. And I'll just say, as a young kid leaving, it is very, very challenging to get yourself in an environment where you're connected to non-Amish people that have a solid life, because you feel like you've just been cut loose from bondage of years and years of bondage. So you're just wanting to go out and really experience the world. And you soon realize, as I did, that that's not the kind of life I want to live. Right. I mean, it's not what the world, paints it as. It's not as glorious as it appears to be.
Right.
And because it's really, if you want to dig deep and you want to mirror yourself off of the Bible and the truth out of the Bible, you believe that the Bible is true, then that would be considered what the world calls fun and just go out and live your life with no boundaries. It's considered sin. And living under sin never leads to anything productive. And so that's kind of the route that you ended up taking after leaving here and going to Minnesota. And that's where you said you felt like you were really free because you didn't have, for a while.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for a while. You feel like you're finally free until it starts getting old and going to parties isn't all that fun anymore. And it just, one thing led to another, and I was finally so sick of it. I'm like, I'm done. No more.
And you were, at what age did you say that you were done with that?
I'd say 19, I think.
19. So you pretty much, I mean, you didn't waste a lot of time in that.
No, I did not.
Maybe 6-8 months.
Something like that, yeah.
And you, I mean, some kids they don't have that willpower to just say, I'm done, I'm not doing it anymore. But you did, and you really drastically changed your life, and you decided to start your own business, which you're running to this day. You're 22 years old. You have a successful business. You travel the country delivering furniture, and you're making a pretty decent living doing it. And
I can't complain.
And so I think it's just the perfect picture of, and you can correct me again if I say something doesn't line up with what actually happened, but the way that I see it, like it's not hard for me to figure out why you're doing well. Because you change your life and you start following the truth, you will be rewarded for it. It's just that simple. And I think a lot of kids that are out there, maybe you're listening right now and you've left and you've had a hard go at life and things are just not working for you. Dig deeper for some truth and figure out what that is. And like Joseph said earlier, find out for yourself in the Bible what it says and what it really means, because that's where you're going to be able to build your life on. You can't build it on any church. You can't build it on any fallen human on this earth. There's nobody that's perfect enough to like perfectly explain all the truth for your life. So the Bible is the only book that's able to do that. And
I mean, going to church won't save you. You know, that will not save you. Like you can go to church every Sunday, and if you just go to church because because my friends do it, that's just the way we do it on Sundays. Trust me, it's not the right reason. You don't have to. I mean, it's great to go to church, but I don't think you have to go to church.
The Bible does say that we are the church.
Right.
We are the body of Christ. So if we're at church, then we're the church. Right. If we're not at church, then we're not the church. And so, I guess we are still the church, even if we're not there. But it is good. Yeah. It is good to come together,
exactly,
and fellowship. That is a great thing to do. So, not saying church isn't good. I'm just saying, like you said earlier, that it is something that you have to seek out for yourself. And yes, you can learn some things from pastors, and pastors are great.
Yes,
there's lots of great pastors out there, but yeah, I think I really, really appreciate you sharing your story today. I think that there's so much more in store for you, and you're just getting started. And
definitely, the sky's the limit, I think.
Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience today about your story that I didn't ask you about or didn't think to ask you about? And we'll have you on for another episode later on, but because I'd love to get into more of your story, where you're at currently. But is there anything specific that you'd want to add?
I think we covered pretty much everything that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
For this time, but definitely have to come back later.
You had mentioned to me that you just recently started a YouTube channel. What is your YouTube channel?
It is Amish Trucker or something, I think.
Amish Trucker. So pretty much what you're hearing is all these Amish that are leaving, they're coming to take over YouTube because so many of them starting a YouTube channel. I think it's awesome, including myself. I mean, I'm having a great time putting out these podcasts, and so go ahead and go follow Joseph on the Amish Trucker. He's a truck driver. He delivers furniture. He does an excellent job at it, and I'm super proud to have him as my nephew, and I thank you for coming on today's episode. Until next time, thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing and liking these videos, and we will keep them coming. We'll see you in the next video.